Put on our happy faces.
Put on your happy face. Streaming to primary, it says. It's always a bit of a setup with things.
Hmm.
Let's see what we got. Loading video. It's a good sign. Live. Hey, look at us.
Oh, we got an advertisement.
Extraordinary
Yeah,
subjects.
that's famous.
Oh, here we go.
Fantastic Four, rated PG-13.
Extraordinary
Yeah,
subjects.
that's famous. I'm still hearing stuff, I guess, from the others. But that's because I asked you guys to check. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, here we go. Stuff is going.
Fantastic Four, rated PG-13.
Alright, so I can close down game. Close that down. So, I guess I'll just log into the chat. I suppose we are live.
So you have a little more conviction.
I'm checking a secondary browser because I'm stubborn. Log into the chat. I suppose. There we are. Now I see it. Awesome. Volume down. I'll even mute that. Now I'll jump into the chat. Oh, apparently I am Game Audio Hour in the chat room, which is not what I wanted.
That's all right.
So I guess at this point, if somebody wouldn't mind tweeting for people to refresh their browsers, and the video should start playing. Thank you, y'alls. I see what's happening. How'd you guys get logged into chat? How'd you set up your account for that?
You just type in a message and then it will give.
Oh, okay.
It'll tell you that you need to log in or sign up. Oh, there you go.
I want to log out as Game Audio Hour and log in as Atmosonic. I wonder if that's possible.
That's much more recognizable as you.
But that's my other Twitch account. Viewer list.
Don't worry, AKADR, so are we.
Alright, well, I guess I just have to be Game Audio Hour since it's... I don't know. If I change it, I'll probably blow up things. But I am going to log into our other one as Kyle Johnson in case somebody's over there, like, asking, is there a show?
Yep. Let's do this.
Now, with that, I'm going to change a shot.
Are we live right now?
We are live right now.
Oh, this is so
checked it.
exciting.
I know.
It looks like the Twitch is about it's about 20 seconds behind live.
Oh,
If
is
you're
it?
interested.
Well, let's see if it switches.
Do we know how many people are watching? Does Twitch report that information?
Not that I see right away. I'll have to do some investigating. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. I'm fancy. I am way behind, aren't I?
It's okay.
Okay, I'm going to go get the obligatory drink, and I'll be right back. And we'll kick it off.
All right.
It's like behind the scenes of Game Audio Hour.
So I guess to save bandwidth, it's probably a good idea for us to pause the live screen up the top. Otherwise, it'll be loading 20 seconds into the past.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Not much use for us to watch that.
Is anybody else in the Twitch chat room? Seems to be just. Oh, AKA ADR is here.
Yeah. AKADR. And I guess there are a couple of non-logged in people also watching. I know we're not too entertaining right now. We will be entertaining soon.
This is really a meditation exercise. Users, please focus on Kyle's sofa and pick a mantra of your choice. That'll keep things moving. We could do a reverse drinking game. Anytime somebody asks a certain thing in the chat room, Kyle has to take a drink.
Yeah, like, if people don't say I'm handsome, I have to take a drink.
I don't know if you'd make it through the show, man.
I'll be drunk in 2 seconds. My ego is just that. So, I guess... Oh my god, look how beautiful this is. The stream looks fantastic. It's amazing. So I will kick off with the spiel, and then we'll know when to start the show. You guys got any last minute stuff you want to cover before I say it's time to go?
Brace yourselves.
It's really the preliminary minute rather than last minute.
Yeah. Technicalities.
That's why I'm here.
Well, then I will just check a couple things. Our chat's running. People are in. Are people seeing us okay? I will check that, actually.
Alaska, AKA, is watching.
I'm curious if the volume's too loud or too low. I want to make that adjustment before I start the show.
Well, so far things sound good. I'm actually listening to the 20 seconds behind, and it seems okay to me.
Okay, great. Well, then I will kick it off. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to Game Audio Hour number 69. This is our weekly podcast. We discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And Mike is gone. What happened? So to explain a few things, this is a very special episode for us because we've upgraded our system. I'm wearing headphones, which I ordinarily don't. We're not using Google Hangouts as much as we love the Goog. There are some occasional issues with technical difficulties, and we're experiencing one, I think, right now. I'm going to cut right now over to the fulsome chat, or the fulsome panel list of panelists, and you'll see that Mike is gone. I'm just trying to fill dead air while he tries to get back. But in the meantime, I'm also waiting for that 20 seconds or so for Twitch to say the switch has happened. And there it is. Alex, kick it off. How are you, buddy?
I'm well. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something funny to say, but nothing's come to mind. This new Twitch, new technology, newfangled stuff is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's so much on our minds right now. It's hard to think of something witty to say. I'm having trouble finding the words, but I bet you Vince isn't.
Ooh.
He's a regular lexicon, that guy.
Yes, I always have the right word to say at the right time. But right now I'm just thinking, wow, Mike dropped.
Right at the intro.
Mike drop.
Yeah, mic drop. Yeah. Oh, I stepped on your line. I'm so sorry. That was brilliant. Mic drop. I just like saying Mike's mic. Hey, Mike, your mic is Mike. Mike.
I noticed, Vince, you have a T-shirt that says "Koko" in Japanese, which means right here. That's
Right
all I can
here.
say. It means right here. Can you show us a bit more of the T-shirt there?
Actually, it's a
that's all it
fancy
is.
Coco Journey shirt.
Oh, that's what it is. I thought it was Koko in katakana. Oh well.
But it is actually, just like, there you go. But it's kind of in recognition of Journey just being released on PS4 last week. Exciting times there.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I was thinking if it says what right here.
Yeah, Coco.
Yeah,
Right here.
Koko means here.
What does right now mean? Because then you got a 90s song if you put both of those on your shirt.
Right here, right now.
You're welcome. You can thank me later. When you wake up at 2 in the morning and it's still in your head, you're welcome.
Right.
Man.
So, hey guys, also to say to the viewers, let us know in the chat room, either on Twitch or our traditional chat room. You can reach everything that's going on our live page in case you happen to be watching us through your PS4 or something, because that's totally doable. Is the PS4 and Xbox and all that fancy stuff. You can do all that stuff, right? Now that we're on Twitch, can't you get all fancy with all those?
Ooh, yeah.
You can get on your your iPad, your iPhone, all kinds of stuff. We're still going to be pushing our podcast to Apple, and these shows will be uploaded to YouTube after the show is ended. But there's a new step now because I have to edit out the beginning of all the get ready stuff before I say the spiel. So I'll edit, then I'll do the metadata, then I'll upload it to YouTube, and then Brian, our editor, will send it on to Apple. He does it in batches. So some people I notice have mentioned that we're not quite up to date on Apple as we are on YouTube, and that's because Brian does everything in batches. He is volunteering his time. I can't thank him enough to help us, and I don't want to pressure him into feeling like he has to put up an episode the minute it comes out. So, also, with this new change, this week only, there are no lower thirds. So that one that you were looking at on the left was Alex, and the one you were looking at on the right is Vince, and the one that you're looking at on my phone is Mike, who can't get in for some reason. He can't reconnect. Well, guys, I'm going to pay attention to what Mike's going on right now. Do you guys want to start off a topic and get the show rolling?
Sure. Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I'll start it off by mentioning. Have you got me on the full screen there, Kyle? Kyle's actually, if you're interested, he's got like this. Was like a Korg nanopad or something, but just out of the shot.
I do, but guess what? Now that Mike got dropped, my shot's changed. No, it just fixed itself. Oh, it's because Mike's trying to get back in. So as Mike tries to get back in, the shot is on in its dimensions, and when it's not, Skype automatically makes you guys
there.
bigger.
He's back. It's Mike. He's back.
It's Mike. I was just about to invite him. Let me go say hi to Mike. Hold on. Let me change my shot to the Shapiro shot, which is, this is the big shot right here. The Shapiro shot is where it's at. Mike, welcome back.
Again, yes, great to be back, both immediately and in the grand sense, since I've been away for about a month.
Yes. We missed you, man. Where you been?
New York City, visiting the family, seeing a lot of shows, and that's about it. But it was a good time.
That's great.
Exciting.
That's great. What shows did you see?
I saw Fun Home on Broadway, which I like to describe as Alison Bechdel talking to herself for 2 hours about a man. Ironically, if you know the Bechdel test. Saw a bunch of shows at the New York Fringe Festival. The New York Musical Theater Festival, which was a lot of fun, and saw some great non-musical stuff off Broadway as well. So it was a good time.
What was your favorite? Can you say?
I can. Show. The best thing I saw in New York was actually a non-musical show, a straight play, as they're called Gloria, which was about the machinations at a magazine kind of like The New Yorker. And it's hard to describe without giving big spoilers, but it was really intense and really well done.
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome back, man.
Good to be here.
Welcome back. So we are going, I'm cutting now to the group. We have to figure out this timing because my cuts happen in like a half a second, but Twitch takes a little bit longer. Oh, I guess I don't have to worry about it because people won't even see this. So we can just continue the show as normal. I got to get used to the process. So now Alex was going to kick off the topics, right, Alex?
I was actually just going to mention, if anybody's in the Twitch chat room, a few of us, let's see, Mike, no, actually, Vince and I are actually going in there on our online usernames, which is different from our actual names. So Vince is Sclat Hill, and my username is atype808. Anyway, so the first topic, astute viewers will be aware that on the 23rd of July, last week indeed, actually my 13th wedding anniversary, we celebrated not only 13 years of being married to my lovely wife, but also it's the 30th birthday of the initial launch of the Commodore Amiga. And I thought we would just play a little bit of a tribute with a few minutes here of... what are you doing, Mike? What are you doing, Mike? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Can we have a big shot there?
We got to get in. Hold on, I got to change the shot. Oh, you guys are challenging me.
Can you flip it so that it's readable?
Look at that.
This is an Amiga 3000, I think, Kickstarter disc, which was the operating system on a floppy, signed by R.J. Michael, who was one of the seminal creators of the Amiga's operating system, which I think was called Intuition. I think that was the windowing system they used. And I cornered him at the last GDC and forced him to sign this at Nostalgia Point. So it was a great time.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I thought we'd just sort of pay a little bit of a tribute to the Commodore Amiga and the influence that it's had, especially in game audio, because following on from the Commodore 64, it was like, such a huge revolution in game sound and game experience because of that. And it was the first time for many of us, mostly myself, where games just sort of became this completely different thing. It wasn't just this sort of bleeping little piezo speaker anymore. It was like this coming out of these hi-fi speakers, and it was big, and it was loud, and it was 8-bit, and it was crunchy, it was glorious, and it was full. And so, yeah, I thought we'd just pay a little homage here. So just first to check. So I guess, Mike, you originally had an Amiga.
I did. I started with an Amiga 1000. I later got the 2500, and I think my final Amiga was a 3000.
2500, you mean the 2000 or the 1200?
No, the 2500 was a successor to the 2000. It looked the same, but I believe it had a beefed up processor and a couple of other quantitative improvements.
Interesting. So actually, I came from an Amiga household. My brother being 9 years older than me and very, very interested in software engineering. We have 7 Commodore Amigas at home.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no, sorry, 8. 5 Amiga 500s.
Oh, that made a big difference. I wish you would have said that in the first place.
It's that eighth one that really,
Yeah, that really locked
counts.
it in.
Yeah.
Right. I remember I think I've mentioned this before, but the first time I knew that I wanted to write music on a computer was when I was 11, and I remember the day my brother came in. He had this floppy that said Double Dragon 2.
Ooh.
And he said, "This is going to make you wet your pants." I was 11, remember, so I actually could wet my pants.
Yeah.
So he put it in the floppy drive, and we were watching there, and they've got where they put random numbers into the blitter chip to create that decompression, the colors flickering away. And then there's the trainer from some, like, Denmark BBS or something like that, the crack tro at the start where you press F1 for unlimited lives and F2 for unlimited time. And then the music starts. Actually, I found it later, is the music for Double Dragon 2 on the Amiga was by a demo scene composer called Uncle Tom.
Oh,
And if you check out Uncle Tom's other songs, they're fantastic. But it was like the most moving experience that I've had musically, which is a bit disappointing considering that I started on viola da gamba and harpsichord and then piano and playing violin and all of that. And the thing that moves me is like there's 4 channels of 8-bit sound coming out of the hi-fi attached to my brother's Amiga 500. That then and there was when I knew, right, I want to do that. I want to do that.
do you think people today who are younger and haven't experienced those old retro games are as influenced by game audio as we were in the day when we did hear that? Like we've seen the growth of it, right? And whenever you see an advertisement for game audio stuff, they almost always will say it's not the beeps and bleeps of the past, like that's a bad thing. But because all of us were influenced by those beeps and bleeps, so now people who didn't experience the beeps and bleeps, do we have the same influence? That's
a really good question. I think in our case, I think because the 4 of us being the old farts that we are, I think we may have I arrived at the Commodore Amiga having gotten used to like the little piezo speaker 1-note square wave on my brother's Apple II. So the step up from there, I mean, I'd seen Commodore 64 games and heard what they could do, but then of course when we got to the Amiga, it was like sampled sound. Sampled straight out of like the D50s and the DX7s of the time. Mm-hmm. It was like it was such a huge step there. So that just sort of reinforced the impact of that. So these days, when like young kids try AAA games or really high caliber games for the first time, I don't know that they would have the same experience of sort of, oh my god, I didn't realize that it could be so immersive or that it could be so good. I mean, being used, because games nowadays are so close to cinematic sound, the quality of game sound is on par with what you'd expect from watching a movie. So I think the bar is definitely raised a lot higher. So I don't really know. I mean, there are definitely times when young kids would play games and be really moved by the music. But I don't know whether it could have that same kind of sort of, brick in the face, oh my God, I didn't realize that this was even possible kind of moment that we got with those early systems. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely feel similarly. It's when we were listening to those amazing games back in the mid 80s, we were listening to sounds that I think we literally have never heard before being created in a way that we didn't realize was possible. And I don't think it was just us as preteens and teenagers. I think a lot of adults felt the exact same way because those were the guys that were showing it to me at the time as well. Those 25-year-old, 30-year-old people that were trying to impress on me as an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, oh, this is what something really cool can be coming out of the computer monitor, coming out of the computer speakers. They were listening to something that they hadn't heard before. And nowadays, with modern video games, well, everything is possible, but also it seems like the palette has brought in, and everyone is addressing everything that is out there in the palette in all sorts of little ways. So nothing is quite so special. The processes for actually making these sounds are not that different than the processes that were used to make the sounds of 5 years ago, of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
With the Amiga, whoa, direct memory access. The fact that we can read these samples and I don't have to wait. Because I remember with my old IBM PC, you could play, theoretically, a high-quality sound out of that little Piersall electric speaker that was embedded in my case, but the CPU couldn't do anything else at the same time. But suddenly you had this amazing technology and this huge jump in AV prowess. It's
Yeah.
The Amiga, of course, had a dedicated sound coprocessor, which was part of why it was such a great audio machine. I believe the nickname of that chip was Paula. Am I right?
Yeah.
Paula.
That's right.
So it could, much to build upon Vince's point, it could not only play 4 streams of sampled audio simultaneously, but it was pretty agile even while it was happening. And much in the way that the Blitter chip took a lot of the weight off the CPU for moving around large quantities of graphic data, so did Paula allow audio to be very smooth in the background. So it was definitely a jump in the state of the art, especially if you were coming from an 8-bit machine like the Commodore or heaven forbid, an Apple II. I think what everyone here is observing is that one of the advantages, I guess, of growing up during the infancy of some technology or some consumer technology is everything seems to be getting so much better all the time. At least in terms of the state of the art. And I think there aren't going to be a lot of opportunities for people today to see the state of the art of game audio really take a quantum leap. We're sort of there in terms of audio quality, and we can make incremental gains, but I don't know what the next big, huge, mind-blowing change we'll have in terms of the technical capabilities of audio is.
I know that mind-blowing change is Kyle's going to write finally a good song. That's probably it.
I think if anything, we're going to be getting further into subtlety. It's more about subtlety and sort of seamless integration of audio into games where you don't. It becomes less and less noticeable that this is what's going on. It just feels completely natural to what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. The other thing that we've sort of lost, sadly, with the Amiga that age is the learning process is completely different now. With the Amiga, you could get the song. So when I first heard that Incredible Uncle Tom song on the Double Dragon 2 soundtrack, I could get it and I could actually load it into like Noise Tracker or Star Trekker or Pro Tracker or one of those, and I could see it there. And you could see here are the samples that he's used, and you can actually read it as a track you're listening and see, that's how he did that. Oh, okay, so that's how he's getting all of that depth and that sort of sonic mass out of just these 4 channels by mixing that over there and this over there. And then, the Amiga had its famous low pass filter that was used that would be connected to the power light, right? So when you have a guru meditation, then you get this sort of switching out low pass effect on the music. But anyway, being able to actually learn by just looking at the listings right there and seeing that that's how they did it, and then also from a musical point of view as well. What's that chord doing? And you play it. Oh, okay, so that's this chord, and then you got this melody on top, and that makes that. Oh, I see. So you can actually see and experiment and actually edit with these pieces of music that came out of games. And that nowadays, of course, we're sort of limited to basically music is locked into games, and you don't have access to that. And instead, we need to watch YouTube tutorials and stuff like that, where it's great to be able to watch somebody else make something there on the screen, but it's completely different from having access to this actual finalized file, and you can move things around and experiment yourself.
I wonder if one thought I had was, since people getting into game audio don't have the beeps and bleeps to inspire them or to compete with, I wonder if that's limiting how many people are interested in game audio because of these huge orchestral scores. Like, for instance, if I wanted to be a movie score guy, like I did when I went to college, I would listen to these scores and think, I'm never going to pull that off. I don't know how to do that. But, in games, when it was beeping and bleeping around, I'd go, oh, I can handle that. So it gave me kind of this really, I was going to say easy way in, because it's not. I mean, there's some brilliance that happens in those beeps and bleeps. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But I wasn't afraid to give it an attempt because it sounded like it was something I could bite off and chew. But when it came to these huge orchestral scores, I get rather intimidated quickly. And I wonder if there's some sort of metric that shows that that's had an effect on how many people are interested in game audio, because it seems like such a hard thing to get up and running with.
Vince,
certainly.
I was actually going to ask you do teachings, don't you, Vince? What kind of reasons do you get from your students about why they start?
Well, yeah, a lot of them do point to the nostalgia for the old music, and for many of these for many of these kids that enter college these days, old music is stuff like Final Fantasy VII, or maybe even Final Fantasy VI back in the mid '90s. And there is that, but there's also quite a bit of love still for audio, and this was something that I wasn't sure about because I don't keep in touch with all the modern games as I do with a lot of older stuff. But they talk very fondly about not just music, but individual sound effects and sound effects design for a lot of modern games, and I think that's a place where you can still think about, wow, that is a great sound, or that is an iconic sound. And that's really cool to see people still have that love for such a small part, such a low-level component of the overall design.
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
So before we move on from the Amiga, I thought we should also just pay tribute to some of the MIDI sequences that were on the Amiga, because the Amiga's MIDI clock was very, very good, and of course the big competitor was the Atari ST with Cubase and Notator. Yes, from eMagic. But yeah, the Amiga had the two that I used were actually, I used Octamed for a while, which had some MIDI capabilities. But the two that I used were Bars and Pipes, which had this sort of very kind of cute sort of metaphor where you're actually piping the audio, piping MIDI data through these pipes, which will allow you to add on these sort of little MIDI plugins into the pipeline to do funny things with the MIDI, like, for example, arpeggiation and slamming all of your velocities up to 127 or whatever. And then MusicX is an incredible MIDI sequencer concept waiting to be reborn. I was just saying before we started the show that the great thing about MusicX was that all the MIDI clips could contain, as well as MIDI notes and program changes, control changes, and all of those, they could also contain other MIDI clips inside the MIDI clips. So everything could be sort of nested inside one long MIDI clip. Inside that, you would have more MIDI clips for the different sections of the song. Inside the one section of the song, you would have more MIDI clips for your drum beats or your chords or your melody or bass. And inside those, you would finally have actual notes. Oh. But you could actually put notes together with triggers of other MIDI clips in the same thing. So it was so flexible with how you wanted to arrange it, and made it really easy to sort of quickly knock up structure. And that's one thing I've never seen in a modern DAW, is actually being able to start MIDI clips from within MIDI clips. Now, of course, it gets more complicated because we have audio to deal well. But that was a great sequencer on the Amiga.
I think it's also worth drawing a little more spotlight on Bars and Pipes, which was such an oddball sequencer in a number of ways. It was designed by Todor Fay, who would then go on to, I believe, head, what was it? Direct Music was the API that Windows had for their interactive music system. So that was his baby. But one of his earliest projects was this oddball sequencer, which, as Alex said, used a visual metaphor for your MIDI data flow. Essentially, if you can think of the MIDI processing plugins that you have in Logic or other modern DAWs, like a arpeggiator or turn this MIDI note into a chord, Bars and Pipes treated each one of those things as graphic plugins that were instantiated along an actual pipe, like I had a cartoon of a water pipe going from left to right. And the metaphor is you were dropping in these plugins at various points of the pipe, which looked a bit ridiculous, but it did give you a very good visualization of what was happening to your MIDI data as it was going from left to right across the screen. And since there was no real audio, and I don't know if sequencers back then were really great about even giving you a visualization of your MIDI data from left to right, the way we're used to today, it was a really interesting way to see what was going on. The whole thing was really goofy but strangely powerful, and I ended up using it kind of despite its interesting visual metaphor, not because of it.
Yeah, me too. I think the other thing about bars and pipes is you could actually pipe MIDI data from one channel into another with these sort of like elbow bends that you could like, pipe around. So super easy to sort of pipe this MIDI output into like 3 or 4 different MIDI channels to layer up sounds that way. But actually, interestingly, the piano roll display has changed very, very... there's been very little change to the traditional piano roll display in modern DAWs compared with like early ones like bars and pipes. It looks basically exactly the same. So you have the piano down this side, and you have the notes that are just bars across here, hence bars and pipes.
Ah, gotcha.
And yeah, so it's interesting that piano roll hasn't really innovated at all
Since
over
then.
the last 25, 20 years, whereas everything else about DAWs that we know has completely changed now. So yeah, that's an interesting thing.
So when you were describing it, I was thinking about Max MSP. Has it kind of got the same kind of feel?
Max is probably much more flexible, and it's not as locked into this left-right graphic metaphor. I would go to Google Images and just search for some screenshots of bars and pipes, and you'll immediately see what they were going for and what the look was like. I'm seeing here a couple of images. Oh, and I believe it had notation too, if memory serves. A kind of rudimentary notation display, which was quite advanced for the time, even though something we take for granted today.
Be careful. Do not type in bars and pipes without the word audio. Just to clarify. It's a whole different experience. I am not the best Googler. It's been proven.
Yeah, look at that. I'm just looking at a little screenshot of bars and pipes here, and you've got like little taps on there as well that you can like turn off or turn on the flow. And yeah, it was like such a... Yeah, it was like goofy is really the best way to describe it, but actually, yeah, strangely powerful and very innovative.
That's awesome.
So anyway, that was... so we would... I guess we should just end this little segment by saying thank you to the Commodore Amiga for blowing many of our minds and giving us early access to some of these wonderful features like stable MIDI clocks and powerful, versatile MIDI sequences. And here we are. The rest of us have moved on, except for me, because I'm still using trackers.
Actually, I just wanted to say the Amiga is still alive for some people. I was looking around and seeing if there were some modern games that use the Amiga, and I see Junichi Masuda, who is a video game composer. He actually composed the soundtracks to 2 of the more recent Pokemon games on the Nintendo DS, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, on the Amiga before they were eventually converted to the DS.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so some guys are just still stubborn as ever.
Why would you do that, I wonder? I'm not really one to ask that question, because, like, why would I use a tracker for everything in this day and age? That's me, but I guess he goes, like, one step beyond me in terms of, like, hardcore, crazy, weirdo tactics.
Mm-hmm. So yes, the Amiga still lives on.
Yeah. So what's the next topic?
Carl's bored of this one. let's talk about Fripp, shall we?
Okay, hold on. I'm down. I'm in that. No, I'm not bored. I'm just keeping it rolling.
Okay.
You don't have another one, do you?
Me?
Yeah. I'm busy, man. I'm doing shots. I'm doing not shots of whiskey. I mean, shots of the camera shots, trying to like keep up with you guys. I switched to Alex, and then Vince talked, and I had to switch back to all of us, and then Alex talked a bunch more, and I had to switch back to Alex, and somebody talked, and I had to switch back to all of us. You guys are driving me crazy.
I have another sort of interesting topic, well, not really a topic, but just a little piece of news that at the moment, for this month, so you have like another 2 or 3 days, the venerable vintage drum machine sampling maestro Gold Baby it has got a sale on of something like 20% off, 30% off of his sample packs. Now, for those who are not aware,
that's me.
Gold Baby is a guy in New Zealand, and he makes arguably the finest samples of vintage drum machines that you will ever find.
Wow, nice.
If you have a look at the extents that this guy goes through, he's done stuff like actually burning samples burning recordings of his drum machines to vinyl and then sampling the vinyl.
Oh, wow.
He's done stuff like this is amazing. The one that I bought at this sale, it's called the custom DMX set that he's got. Very affordable. Listen to this. You'll remember the Oberheim DMX drum machine?
Yeah.
From 1981, maybe, I think.
Yeah.
What he's done is he's sampled the original sounds out of the Oberheim DMX and gone a step further and burnt his own EPROMs of other drum samples to play out of the Oberheim DMX and recorded. So you get that authentic DMX 12-bit tone from other drum machine samples. That's brilliant.
That is intense. I see it. Is that the custom DMX page?
Yeah, and they sound really good. So the other ones that he's done like reel-to-reel. So you actually get sort of all the classic drum machines recorded off reel.
Nice.
Also off cassette tape. I think his free set there is one called Tape 909, I think, which is like a free set of off portable cassette tape. As well as a whole bunch of other really, really amazing stuff that he's done, like through the old classic MPC 60, the SP 1200, all of these like really old classic crunchy 12-bit samplers with all of these great classic drum machines. So if you're into electronic music and you want the finest vintage drum machine samples in the entire galaxy,
Yeah.
then go to goldbaby.co.nz and NZ.
Oh.
Did I say NZ? That's terrible.
I heard you. I've secretly thought that Z was actually how everybody said it, and Z was just people being posh.
Pretend.
Yeah, and grab some of his packs because his stuff is just really, really incredible. And you got to respect a guy who actually goes and burns his own EPROMs to put into a vintage sampler to record through the sampler's converters. I mean, that's incredible.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm searching. While you guys are talking, I'm searching for a favorite of my own. I'm going to advertise.
I have to admit a little bit of guilt in that I used to own an Alesis HR16, and at the end of its lifespan, I threw it away, figuring that who would ever want such a thing again? It's been surpassed by software, but everyone's look of horror on the show is now reinforcing kind of what I've experienced from other people when I told them. It's like, I just took the Mona Lisa and smashed it over my knee for fun. I just don't understand why there's such an attachment to these ancient sounds that can be adequately, if not perfectly, reproduced in most DAWs today.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question about like vintage synthesizers. Actually, this is one good friend that I have in Tokyo recently. I found a secondhand Alesis SR16.
16. That's sitting out in my closet. I love that thing.
The classic. It's like the worst operating system on a piece of hardware you could ever imagine. It's got like this huge jog dial on the top, and you think, oh, that must be just for adjusting data values. No, it's volume. Like master volume on a drum machine. Why would it need to be that big? I mean, you're just going to be full all the time, right? Anyway, part of it, I think, is just really the workflow. You know, just it's sort of these drum machines, they're built to supposedly be easy to use as like knocking out beats very quickly, and it's just sort of there's a tactile, visceral feel there. They're just like knocking out the beats, and this is a lot of fun, and it allows you to work a lot more faster than squinting away at a piano roll.
So I left. I ended up moving to LA in '91, I think, and I slept on the floor of a friend's house, apartment, excuse me. And I used to take the cushions off the couch and put a fitted sheet around them so that I could have a mattress. That's how small this place was. And he had all of his drum machines out, and we played in a band together previously, and so I was kind of trying to write songs for him for the band he was in. I was not in that band, and the SR16 was my go-to. Sleep on cushions on a fitted sheet, get up, work at an art gallery at the Redondo Beach Galleria, and come home and try to program an SR16. I had a breakdown and decided not to do that anymore. Okay, I didn't have a breakdown, but I did start to, examine my life. And so then I told my wife one Christmas, she's like, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, what, I'd love to see an old Alesis SR16. And among other things, and she found a brand new SR16, which I guess you can still do. This was quite a few Christmases ago, and I didn't know whether I should be mad at the Christmas present because it was kind of a joke, or say thank you very much. I ended up opening it back up and just having an awesome time. You're right, that OS is horrible, but once you learn it, it's like a bicycle. You're never going to forget it. and it just kind of makes sense. It's kind of like
Yeah.
Ableton for me, it just makes sense. Some DAWs I look at them and go, I don't know what you're trying to do, but Ableton just makes sense. Anyway, that's my story about an SR16. You're welcome.
Am I right in remembering that those things could be backed up to audio, like to cassettes, in a kind of like the way that the old computers would sometimes send encode data in an audio signal? I seem to have this weird memory
That's
of
what it's
doing
for.
that.
That's what it's for. On the back of the SR16, my friend and I were checking it out on the back, and there's a small mini jack there that says tape out. And I was like, what? We're thinking, what is tape out for? Like, what would that be for? Is it like a stereo out that you plug into your tape recorder, or what's it for? It's for like, is backing up sysx data to tape or something?
Exactly. It would be like much like computers like the VIC-20 used to have a cassette drive. It would just encode data as audio, like a modem, basically, and that would be its backup mechanism. And I think I did that exactly once with the SR16, and I was amazed that it worked. And subsequently, I moved to sysx over MIDI, which I think it also supported. But yeah, that was a fascinating overlap of what was reasonable technology at the time, and then like this shout out to the late 70s in terms of a data format.
Thing is, it still works though.
Yeah.
Like if you still want to, if you have these old machines, I was actually doing this for one of my old Akai machines, which is also an early '80s vintage, and I wanted to grab some new patches for it, and I just get an MP3 file, record it to tape. Okay, there we go. Suddenly I've got some new stuff in my Akai.
That's embarrassing. But you're right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, my friend Kevin Mulhall has my SR16 right now, and I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and think, I think he's going to think I don't like him. I think he thinks I did this on purpose as a joke.
Do you know of anybody in game audio who's working on like Machine or like MPC or like one of those sort of like hardware pad-based units?
Yes, our very own Matt Piersall does a lot of stuff on Machine.
Oh, really?
And so does some of the guys that he's with over there.
Oh, right.
I have one sitting right here. I could knock off the 6 layers of dust off of it if anybody's interested in messing with it. That's one of those operating systems. Maybe that's a subject. That's one of those operating systems that makes no sense to me whatsoever. The machine and I do not get along. I've tried and tried and tried.
What about MPC? Have you ever tried Akai's MPC?
I have not, no.
I think I have Sorry, go ahead.
I think Machine was basically created by polling lots of really hardcore, serious MPC users about what they didn't like about Akai's MPC operating system. And Machine was sort of created as this kind of like what Bitwig is to Ableton Live, right?
Yeah. Nice.
Sort of like this sort of enhanced, advanced version, improved, refined version of the original. So I guess if you're an MPC user, then maybe you might be able to slide right into Machine fairly intuitively.
I love the idea of sound design via a drum machine, where you load up, a one shot of a gun sound. You load up a rattling of a long gun sound, footsteps that you can walk with the video. I've done occasionally, only a couple of times, a silent movie where I did the sound effects with a machine that I have here that's a bunch of slap gamer buttons. But I think we've talked about that in the past. But I had the movie, so I knew when the footsteps were going to come in, and I could organize the buttons to have the sound effects that I wanted. It's a little more difficult if you're doing some kind of live sound design to something that you haven't seen before. I don't know why you would do that, though. But I struggle with the idea. I think, okay, that would be really cool to have a drum machine work as a sound design unit. So I'd like to talk to Matt about what they're doing. I just know they use it a lot. But in the more traditional sense of having samples underneath these buttons that I would call by hitting the button, that's useful, if it's fun if you're doing like a silent movie kind of situation that I was messing with. But it's, I also pulled it out when I was doing demos for game companies that I wanted to work for, and I would start to do it for the game demo, and I'd think, why am I doing this? I'll just load in the samples into my DAW, and I don't need to play along with the demo I'm trying to write sound design for. I need to actually script it into my DAW. So I would like to talk to Matt about what they're doing. They must have found some, because Bobby's doing it. They found something over there in Matt's shop that's made it really useful. Those guys really dig in.
they're using machine or MPC.
Machine.
Okay.
But they would probably correct me. I'm sure they've got all kinds of gadgets over there. But machine is the one I see them talking about.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. I do miss well, actually, I don't miss it that much because working with a tracker, you basically are using the keyboard most of the time, like the QWERTY keyboard instead of the mouse or your controller keyboard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a drum machine in a sense, and you're just punching away stuff into it as you go along. But yeah, that hardware approach definitely forces you to commit to ideas, and it forces you to commit to concepts, very rapidly. And I think because it's a little bit harder to experiment, that's why you kind of progress a little bit more rapidly. That's definitely the case with working with a tracker versus working with the traditional DAW. That you're always forced to commit, kind of work it out in your head first, and then just like step through it instead of trying this and trying that, or maybe tweaking this and tweaking that, and you tend to move much faster. But anyway,
I think that's fantastic. I need to do more of that. Is decide beforehand. I decide a little bit. I frame something. I frame ideas or motifs. And then I spend the rest of my time trying to keep myself from being distracted by being tempted to go try other things.
Okay.
And stay focused. Am I alone? Is that the process for you guys other than Alex? Because he's already said he keeps focus.
I let stuff sort of flow as they will.
Yeah. But beautiful music comes out of that, though.
Yeah, you never know what things want. I like to think that the music almost has a will of its own. It wants to go somewhere else.
That's so true. That's so true. Except
That's
the somewhere
nice.
else I'm taking it is not exactly what it was asking for.
That's nice. I've never had that experience actually in writing music. It's always been just sort of trying to got this in here and just got to get it out into there. And I've never, because getting it out in there is very easy and very quick. It's never a sense of kind of being obstructed by the software or anything, by the process. So it's a very easy transition from here to here. But I've never had that sense where like the music is taking on a life of its own and sort of moving in a certain direction. Another colleague, the same colleague that I got the LSs for, he actually uses Reason to do his work for a Swedish game company in Tokyo. He actually mainly does all of his work using Reason, which is all interesting as well. He loves the experimentation and the sort of spontaneous nature of how Reason works.
Yeah, that's a good one. Reason's tough. I've heard some great stuff come off of some people who know Reason.
Mike, when you're composing, do you how much is in here and how much the music just sort of floats along by itself and you just help guide it along?
Both processes happen in my workflow. Sometimes I'll hear something very distinct, and it is just a process of bringing it out, either because I'm hearing something with the orchestra or something a little more abstract that I'm going to realize through samples. But particularly when working with samples, the role of improvisation is much bigger. Sometimes I'll be playing with an instrument or a timbre that doesn't exist acoustically, but is really evocative, and I'll think, wow, this is something that I want to put in this game or in this film score. I try not to let it get out of hand because there is a danger of the instrumentational equivalent of feature creep, where you start adding to your virtual band and suddenly the coherence of the music goes out the window and you realize, I just meant to do this fairly straightforward thing, and now there's all this eccentric embellishment going on. So a little bit of iron fist occasionally comes in useful, but I appreciate both approaches, and I think they're both useful.
This reminds me of a conversation I think we've had before, but I want to bring it up again. Mike, do you start from a place of experimentalism, or do you go? Is that a word? It's a word.
It is now.
Do you start with? Was it you guys I had this conversation with? Maybe not. But anyway, do you start from a place of experimenting with sound, or do you start from a place of a more structured approach, and then move to the experimenting?
You mean specifically in the context of music?
Yeah, let me explain it better. I just realized who the conversation was with. So there's three of us who are guitarists, and we've got this ambient thing going on, and we're in rehearsals right now. And as we were trying to work through a piece, we all realized that we all, as guitarists, step on foot pedals, come up with crazy sounds, and then make something around those sounds. we start to find some sort of musical structure that sound can live inside. But that sound is the focus. That craziness is the focus. And then when I go to work on games, I do the same thing. I try to find some kind of standout weirdness and then write something about it, around it musically. Do you do the same thing, or do you do the opposite, where you've got something musical that's very structured, and it goes out to Alex and Vince as well. You start off with some structure, and then you know that you have to start peppering in some sort of experimental or filigree. Does that make sense?
What I find is that when there's a deadline, I get very unexperimental. Especially if the deadline is looming, I suddenly lose all my patience for tweaking and exploring different sounds. What I find is useful sometimes is if I sit down for a day of work, I'll allow the first hour for just playing with sounds or exploring ideas or poking around the back corners of a sample library for things that I don't normally look at. And I'll just partition, an hour for that and not feel obliged to move forward on the deadline during that period. And that way I can preserve a little bit of experimentalism. But as soon as I'm looking at the number of minutes of music I have to create on a certain day, I tend to fall back on the tried and true. And other than that little pilot light of exploration, I tend not to stray too far from what's reliable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel you on that. Although I have to admit, I like to experiment a lot, and when it comes to how I choose between experimenting versus getting stuff out, it's usually in response to what the developer wants, and I sometimes have to take issue with what the developer wants sometimes, because video games can be such an experimental place, and various developers will say, yes, we believe very strongly in the iterative process of design, and for the game design, for the game mechanics, for the economy, for everything else. And then, but we just want some music from you. Hurry up with the music. Come on, hurry up with the music right now, please, please. And I'm like, what's the big deal if other things that are in the pipeline are where they are in the pipeline and are still not quite where they're supposed to be, and they're going through that process of iteration and ideation? Like, if I see that there is that process there, I think that the music should also have a similar space for that experimentation and constant iteration. So I like to make sure that it's at least equivalent.
That's a great point. Alex, how about you? Is it always structure all the time, never experimenting?
The only experimenting that I think, just for the nature of the way that I work with renoise and trackers, the only experimenting happens with patch design. Patch design is all experimentation, and maybe 20% actual knowledge about how to create a certain sound, and the rest is just sort of based on that knowledge, just trying patching this here and that there and seeing what happens. As far as music, sadly for me, I've never been very good at experimenting because I can't play keyboards very well. I'm a bass player. So basically, it's all structure pretty much, sadly. You do kind of get good at it after a while, but it does limit you because you're limited by what you can imagine instead of, just there are no happy accidents. It was like, oh, that's nice. I wasn't expecting that. That's kind of cool. So when I'm writing music, then sadly, it's sort of basically start, and the way the tracker works is you sort of start at the beginning and then just go through it. It's like, okay, this is the kind of intro that I want, so I make that. And then after the intro, okay, this is the kind of sort of A section I want, so I make that. Maybe I might sort of have this sort of chorusy kind of bit here, so I make that. And then, okay, maybe I might do a B section here and I make that. So it's like very linear.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of used to it now, and I can make it work on a deadline, which is the important thing. But it is sad because I see other people and the way that they work. There's so much more variety there in what you can do when you're able to experiment very skillfully, and sort of various tools of course, Ableton Live is a great one, and then various other tools make it so much easier to just sort of throw things together and see what happens, and come across those happy accidents, and then maybe you get that excitement. Whereas Vince said, it feels like what you're writing is taking on a sort of a sort of an autonomous direction of its own, and it wants to go in that direction. Sadly, I've never had the privilege of experiencing that. For me, it's just sort of, methodical from A to B. So yeah, this is something I really need to work on.
Totally makes sense. And I find myself in that spot too. Like I get an idea when I'm not trying to experiment, and then it becomes very linear. But I always find myself in some sort of writer's block. Every song I ever work on, I have writer's block somewhere in the process. I've never had really a song just kind of flow, and it's the experimenting that I hope is going to save me. And so because of that practice, I think I experiment first and then go, oh, I like this sound. Let's see if it can turn into something. But I want to talk about something else before. So typically we would only have 3 minutes left of the show, but we got started a little late. Do you guys mind if we go another 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
I'm going to have to probably jump out in about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Let's go 10 minutes more. So it'll be 7:10 for us here in the Pacific time zone. So I've been spending my days in a program called Isotope RX Advanced. Do you guys use that much?
I wish I could afford it. Can you buy it for me?
Yeah, get just RX. It's pretty amazing. It's just unbelievable how much time I'm spending in there. Let's say I have an 8-hour workday, I probably spend 6 hours every day in Isotope just working on stuff. And as I'm sitting here listening to the show through my headphones and I hear my phone ring, I can hear static show up on my headset, and I'm hoping it doesn't come through to the show. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to RX out all that static. So RX is a pretty amazing piece of software. I've used it for years, but only in the last month have I been using it 6 hours a day every day. And what it can do is amazing. I ended up with 2 different audio sources recorded in 2 different locations using completely different microphone setups, and I was able to do this thing they got called EQ matching, which I've seen fail, but this time it really impressed me, and I thought I should bring up some of the cool features that RX has in case you guys aren't using it for your own scores or for anybody who might be interested. But I did an EQ match against the process, against the recorded audio that I wanted to hold on to, and put it to the audio I wanted to improve. And it wasn't perfect. It was too mid-rangey and things like that. But then I jumped in the EQ and I could start making some adjustments to make it. And I tell you, to my ear, and I'd like to think I have it, I could not tell the difference between those 2 pieces of audio. And they were recorded on different mics in different locations, like I said. It was pretty amazing. A lot of things I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of dialogue work, and there's a lot of close mic mouth noises. And so I've been going into declicker and getting rid of those mouth noises by taking a practice area of the audio. And then creating presets that I call green apples, because if you eat green apples, it helps you get rid of mouth noises. And then you can do batch processing, Apple B if you're on an Apple, load in all these files, run that declicker across all those files while you go get a cup of coffee. You come back, it's done. And they sound great. I can't say enough about Isotope RX. What do you guys use in Isotope RX for if you're using Isotope RX? Or what other Isotope software?
I wish I was. It's like looking at this advanced price is $1,200 US.
They have a sale every once in a while. Jump on it. That's what I did. And it comes with, when you get that, you get Insight. And Insight is my go-to metering software.
I'd love to get Insight. I'd love to get anything by Isotope, but it's so expensive.
Yeah, they get kind of hardcore, don't they?
I use Ozone 6 pretty regularly. That is kind of my main stereo bus plugin for everything, and I really love it. There is also a really neat plugin that's on sale right now. I think I snagged it for $20, called Nectar Elements.
Nectar, yes.
I don't have the full-blown Nectar, but I did buy this little miniature version, the spin-off, and it's basically a channel strip plugin for vocals with a lot of preset settings. You've got your EQ, and you've got your gain and trim, and I think some compression and a lot of effects, and you just tell it R&B, and it'll give you 20 options for an R&B sound for vocals. So it's kind of a quick resource. I'm sure it's just repackaging the same exact technology that's going into something like Ozone, but it makes it an accessible set of presets that looks useful for beginner or even a pro who just wants to have a quick and dirty setting for a particular vocal style.
Do Isotope need iLock?
I think it does.
You can do
It
either
used
or.
to,
Okay.
but I actually do have RX4, and I do not have a physical iLock key anymore, and it doesn't matter. it just works. I'm really glad about that.
Absolutely. And I keep mine on an iLock because I work between laptops and different machines, whether I'm at a studio or whether I'm at a home studio. And so I like to have my iLock and pop it in, bring up RX, and just go with my license. Of all things, you're hearing Kyle Johnson say he likes his iLock.
Wow.
But so Ozone is fantastic. Now, Ozone 6 had a look and feel change to it, and I still stick with Ozone 5. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, they started making some corrections to the Ozone 6 user interface so that people got back these features that they were used to seeing. Is that true?
It's very much the case. When Ozone 6 was released, it was a bit of a regression in terms of functionality. The per module presets were removed. So you'd have kind of presets for the whole gestalt that would have settings for every module, the EQ and the post EQ and the finalizer, et cetera. But there weren't any presets for the individual module anymore, which made a lot of people annoyed.
Yeah.
Among those people, myself. So I actually went back and fell back on Ozone 5 for a while. But I guess this was just an issue of something having not been implemented in time for release, because in a subsequent update, they restored the per channel presets. And I find that I actually I like the interface for Ozone 6 better than 5. It's a little less cluttered. It's a little easier to read. But I don't have sophisticated enough ears to tell you that 6 is orally a big jump over, sorry about that, over its predecessor.
Hey, can you say gestalt again? Because I'm going to drink every time you say gestalt. That's a great word.
Oh, gestalt.
Oh, okay.
Please. It's almost like it'll be our way of saying cheers, because it'll force the child to drink. Gestalt.
Oh, don't do it. Come on, man. Gestalt is such a great word. Yeah.
We need to. It's been a while since we've had like a real hardcore plugin show, like a plugin episode. We're just focused on plugins. We should do that next week.
Yeah. Well, as I was working in RX today, I was thinking, there's a lot of things that I've learned over my years of spending time in RX that I kind of want to put together a tutorial video. Maybe I'll do that off to the side. Yeah. Maybe we should start like a game audio hour tutorial file. What's the word I'm looking for? The repository, where we can all put together tutorials of things on our own time and load them up there, because there's all kinds of tricks to RX that are fantastic. Getting rid of plosives and mouth noises and I mean, when I first got into RX, it was just trying to clean up a song that I had done. I'd sent for an album that I put out. I sent it to mastering, and it came back, and my RE201 overmodulated and caused a bunch of distortion, and they didn't take that out, and that's okay. I didn't give specific instructions saying take that out, and sometimes when you're mastering, you don't know what the person wants. Is that intentional or not? And I thought, I got to go into RX and clean all that up before I print these CDs. And I was looking for software that did that. And I was led to Sound Soap and all kinds of stuff, but I think it was Sound Soap.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so RX is where I went, and I cleaned it up.
The thing that's a wonder is, RX is just so great. And there are other pieces of software that do similar things. I mean, I remember before I got RX, I would try to do a lot of things that I now do in RX. I would do it in Adobe Audition, which kind of does a lot of stuff that SoundForge does, but in a very different way. And I found some success with that. But it really is amazing. Just what you can do with the power of computers these days, and two, waiting for the next great software developer to make that next killer app, that next silver bullet type of program that you can't live without, because it's going to come.
So
and I wonder, is it actually going to be a computer program, or is it going to be something that's going to be running on an iPad or even your iPhone? And when you were talking about matching stuff, that actually got me looking at this program that I just saw a little news bit on. And IK Multimedia has a program that runs on your iPhone, and it's basically a microphone emulator. And for $8, a mere $7.99 on the Apple App Store, you can turn your reference microphone into an AKG C12 or a Neumann U67 or
Wow.
or a
Is that-
Groove Tubes Velo 8 or
So
is that
sure.
using like some kind of convolution IR
yeah, it's got to be.
to do that?
They ran
yeah,
circuit.
and this is running on an iPhone, and that's kind of amazing that you can possibly do that. I haven't tried this myself, but it looks seriously interesting. If you have $8 and
It's too expensive for a U67. $8. You kidding me?
oh man,
Does it have in-app purchases, or what's its monetization model? How many DAOs
Yeah.
does it have?
Can you imagine? It's like $8, right? And then the U67 is $4,000 as an in-app purchase.
oh
right.
man.
It all depends on how many DARPOs it has.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, come on, it's a.
DARPOs, come on, guys.
Oh,
Daily-
sorry, you lost me on that, buddy.
Is it
DARPOs
daily
and
active returning player
Oh.
unit or something?
Ouch.
Yeah.
Too tight. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it would be amazing if it really. I'd like to see the specs on the iPhone to U67 IR to compare to an actual U67. That'd be pretty amazing to see the and if they had the similarity, if it like was right on, noise floor is perfect, everything. Oh my God, IK just made $1 billion.
Yeah. I actually have a microphone modeling preamp, or I actually used to have two different microphone modeling preamps. One is from Roland. I still have that one, and it's actually a decent preamp in and of itself without the whole mic modeling thing, but that was from the early 2000s. And then I got one that was from Tascam. I think it was the Tascam VP1. And again, it had microphone models where it could be like that classic U67 or U87 or whatnot.
That's amazing.
And then those things were, not bottom of the barrel. They were about what, $600, $800 at the time of sale. Not super fancy, expensive preamps, but
But they were doing it so long ago in the past. That amazes me. It's Roland's Cosm is still my favorite modeling to this day.
Cosm is actually quite good.
Yeah, I have two GP100s, which are guitar preamp and processors with Cosm built in. They were early Cosms, and I'll go over to the stack of Marshalls for that thing before I look to anybody else like modern stuff like Guitar Rig or something. They did an amazing sound. They did an amazing job at modeling those sounds.
It's interesting. It's actually quite good, is it? Because I remember when those things came out, Cosm, it was like in that big virtual analog kind of era. Yamaha had the AN1X synthesis, and then that was all around the time that Propellerhead's Rebirth came out, and it was all about sort of emulation.
Yeah.
And I can remember me and my mates like looking at these Cosms. That's not a real stack. That's just a fake kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I have a Korg MS2000 out there, which was the same era of that whole movement.
But it's actually quite good, is it? The Cosm modeling.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Both of those things I have two of. I have a Korg MS2000R for the rack and a regular MS2000 if I want to get my fingers dirty. And then I have two of these GP100s. My favorite thing about the GP100, though, is that my second one I bought on eBay from a private seller. And when I got here, it had all these presets for King Crimson songs. So guess where it came from?
You're not serious, eh?
I am absolutely serious.
Wow.
And so I did a little research and found out that both Robert Fripp and Adrian Ballou both kept two GP100s in their rack for backup. Now this either came from a tribute band that was so amazingly good at tributing that they kept all the song names and all the nomenclature the same as what King Crimson would normally use in their liner notes to describe their songs. But I don't think it came from a tribute band. So I contacted the seller and I said, so did this come from King Crimson? And all they said was, we are not allowed to disclose the seller of this equipment. So I have a King Crimson, I'm saying it, I have a King Crimson previously owned GP100 that actually needed some repairs. I love these things so much I can repair them. I take the knobs off and get in there and clean up the stuff. Because when you turn those knobs, they start jumping, to go from like 100 to 112 when you're just trying to go to 101 or something.
I hope it's got
amazing.
a tape out so that you can back up some of those patches.
Stop it.
Oh man.
I'm ending the show. I'm backing up on tape outs. Alex gets a win on that one. Whatever.
I just love how excited you are. You were so excited that you totally forgot to put the camera on you while you're talking about it. It's
I
been
don't
on
even-
me this entire time.
Sorry, Vince. Let me get back to the regular show, and let's hit this little dissolve window right here. Hey, look, it's the rest of us. So I'll start over with the King Crimson. No, I won't do that. But what's really cool is, by the way, Adrian Belew has this sound called on the song Elephant Talk. Look it up. He does this crazy like flanging with a guitar, and that preset is built into my GB100. And I pulled up my guitar and did the bend and on that patch, and I was like, oh my god, I could be sued. This is so real. It's unbelievable. So with those notes, I'm going to say, hey y'all, thanks for enjoying, or I hope you enjoyed. I'm presuming, aren't I? That's pretty dumb. Thanks for coming and hanging out on the show for our new way of doing things via Twitch and Skype, and we'll push it to YouTube and it'll show up on Apple, and hopefully the quality's better. We got Mike back, which is the best part of the show. And by the way, Twitter us and face us and you us and do all those things that you do when you touch one of those websites.
And Twitch us now too.
Oh yeah,
and
subscribe
Twitch.
on Twitch.
Oh my god, I need another one. I can't remember the other three. Insta sound us. Is that a thing? Insta sound?
It should be.
We could
It
create
should
one,
be.
right? Insta sound. Just
Yeah,
like
it should be.
it would just be full of fart noises. I don't think that's really actually going to be a very good one. So Insta sound us and do all those other fancy things. And thank you for tuning in. I'm not even looking at the camera. I'm just thinking about the things I have to say. We really love you much, and thank you for always watching the show and supporting us. And hope you like the new format. Bye.
Gestalt.
Go. I got a drink.